Hello and welcome to the latest edition of our Sustainability Perspectives podcast. My name is Elisabeth Skoda. At this year's Fachpack in Nuremberg, I caught up with Wipak's Michael Martin. He's Commercial Director Food Division at the company. And together we discussed the transformation in flexible packaging, innovations, sustainability goals, Wipak's plans beyond flexible packaging, and wider trends in the industry and much more. So, if this sounds of interest, keep on listening to hear the full interview. My first question for you was, what are some of the advantages of using flexible packaging as opposed to different packaging materials?
I think one of the most beneficial thing about flexible packaging, plastic packaging, is still that we can have a quite good ratio in between used packaging material for the filling content of the package itself. So it's usually lightweight, and that makes it quite common to be used.
Leading on from that, I wanted to ask you, what's the potential of flexible packaging to replace existing packaging materials or solutions made from rigid materials, for example?
It's of course a question of which application at least we are talking about and which kind of rigid materials we compare the flexible packaging concept. And if we're, for instance, talking about tin cans or glass, these are really stiff and heavyweight materials with a high density. There, of course, the benefit of a flexible packaging, if it fits to the filling good, is definitely again the lightweight and the ratio of the material I need to secure that the product still is safe. But there are other areas where, for instance, a rigid material can also be made from a plastic, like talking about shampoo bottles or cosmetic bottles that you use usually. And in that sense, these rigid materials could be, for instance, used more often. And then you might probably have something like a refill option, and then transporting a refill content definitely makes sense to talk about more flexible pouch, for instance, and then refilling the shampoo bottle at home, and the shampoo is then coming from a flexible pouch packaging and is refilled in the rigid shampoo bottle that you usually store in your bathroom.
Yeah, that sounds like it could have some good sustainability benefits as well, yes.
At least, yes, but again, of course, here we're talking again, I'll repeat myself, but this is more or less related to lightweight. And of course, then also in the logistics, that you're transporting something, a pouch that is flat for filling at the producer is better in transportation than, of course, a plastic body or a glass body, for instance, that needs to be transported, and you have, let's say, a lot of weight and a lot of air that you're transporting, so the benefit is definitely there. But again, it always depends what is the application, what is the filling good that you try to preserve in your package, and therefore you need to make a comparison application by application.
That makes sense, yes. And could you give me some example of Wipak's innovations in that area?
At least as I already mentioned, so especially pouches. So Wipak is specialized with its pouch division and definitely providing here a quite good solution in a flexible package, spouted, non-spouted, however you like to have it, for these kind of refilling concepts. So really having an impact, a visible impact on how we can engage in the usage of rigid materials and the time that you use your rigid material, and support this by adding the material by flexible pouch. I think this is something where two things really stick together and showing a huge benefit and contribution into sustainability.
Yes, thank you. And flexible packaging has had some challenges around recyclability in the past, especially. And how has Wipak been innovating to address these challenges around recyclability?
I think we still need to say that still plastic is not really the most sexy packaging material. If you ask the consumer, for instance, or I just need to ask my family. I need to say, yes, I still think plastic is a packaging material that is definitely sexy somehow, most probably because I'm already doing that for a quite long time. But what have we done? What have Wipak done? And what was Wipak's strategy? At least I think that one of the biggest impact was that we quite early started to take collaborations, for instance, with CFLAX and being member of CFLAX to really see what is the direction that these discussions are leading to, and how we can at least react on these requests by engaging our development department, our operational setup to fulfill those requirements that might come up, and that have at least then come up by talking about these requirements to be more sustainable in our packaging thinking. We also worked actively on creating some guidelines together with our associations that we are committed to really to be hands-on in that sense, also to say we have the experience on the material side, we have the experience also on what it needs to have a package that still secures the content, because that's definitely still the most valuable topic of it. It should secure something, it should save the food inside mainly, and to really give our impact and our expertise into this process.
And that leads me on to ask about Wipak's Green Choice portfolio, which includes renewable, recyclable and recycled solutions. What do you say is the importance of each of these sections, and what steps have you taken to achieve these solutions or to make them work?
With Green Choice, you definitely name, of course, exactly the brand that we established already back in 2021 to our portfolio, and the reason here was at least based on what I just mentioned, the regulations and the discussions that were upcoming. How can we definitely show up to the market, to our customers, to the ones that we are working together with, that we are creating a complete new product stream, so that is following those assets that I'm saying. Either we're talking about a product range that is more or less recyclable, or we are using renewable materials. I'll step into closer what this means, or something where we're talking about already recycled materials that we already can return into these packaging. So creating the brand Green Choice by Wipak in the first step was the needed step in really separating the, let's say, the standard portfolio from this new portfolio with a higher sustainability agenda. At least, as you have mentioned, renewable, recyclable and recycled content, all three of them definitely have a high importance. I would start with recyclable, because that's currently the most interesting topic still from the market, because usually a customer is asking us, can you provide us a recyclable solution for the packaging concept that we are currently having in charge. And we need to be fair enough that currently we are still lacking the real regulations for the design for recycling that should be coming from the European Commission within 2028. But nevertheless, already today, together with other partners along the value chain of a package, like the sorting facilities and the recyclers that we are in contact with, we already quite good what might follow these design for recycling rules. And so far, we already today can say we created a portfolio under the roof of the Green Choice by Wipak brand that already can replace more than 80% of the standard products that we're serving to the market with a recyclable solution. Renewable, also this is something that is not really new for Wipak. Wipak was working with paper and paper laminates already in the past to replace a part of the plastic by a renewable paper that was then coming from sustainable resources. Definitely, of course, also here we need to be fair enough that paper and sticking that together with a plastic is something that needs to be checked if this is still something that we should name sustainable. But the single paper solutions that we are also offering to the market with some barrier or sealable properties definitely have their markets. And what is even more important, these paper structures can be repulped with a high degree of phases that we can get back into a new paper. So it means this repulping and recycling process for paper is clear on that one. It becomes a bit difficult if we are talking about recycled materials. Why? Because as you know, there is still a lack of the amount of materials that we would need, and there's another limitation that is coming from the regulations for food contact materials or food sensitive contact materials, like we are providing mainly to the food market. The capacity that we would need is definitely not available. So we are waiting really to have the companies alongside working on creating chemical recycling plants and most probably even streams from the mechanical recycling from the post-consumer waste to be started up and providing the right amount of material into the market. So therefore we have more or less a limitation on the availability. But nevertheless, we are pretty early here also started with the ISCC certification process to be able to provide our customers also these kind of materials and materials compositions, and also of course the needed data managements beside that to prove that this is something that we can bring to the market already today.
Yeah, I guess it's quite a sort of fast developing era. There's going to be lots of there's going to be lots of changes in the next few years, and I guess more innovations in the pipeline as well, hopefully.
Definitely, and I think something that is that you can see already today, where it leads to bringing all these processes over the value chain of a package together. So it means from the day that we are producing a plastic packaging film, we are printing it, whatever, it gets to our customers, we are producing a package out of it, and then we have the end of life scenario where it gets into the collecting and sorting system. Talking about all the stakeholders of this process means that we are pretty clear on what will be the future of plastic packaging. And this is what you can see also on Fachpack, that we provide these so-called mono solutions, so it means one material solutions to the market, either based on polyethylene or on polypropylene, or at least also one stream that is following still the polyester-based materials. But again, the reason is pretty easy why we are doing, because this simplifies the sorting and recycling process, means monomaterial in, monomaterial out, and this is what it's at the end all about, talking about circularity at the end of the day. There will be more innovations, definitely. One of the innovations we have shown up this year was the Flex-Pod, created together with our partner or our sister company Wipak in Canada and US. And this is at least something where we thought, how could we also take into consideration that the consumer needs to take part of this system and needs to take his responsibility in actions. And currently, as you know, especially on yogurts and yogurt cups, we usually have the cap done by polypropylene in the best sense. We have the aluminium lid, or we also have three compartments like polypropylene, cardboard and aluminium lid. And the situation is like that the consumer usually does not separate these parts. So aluminium is perfectly recyclable, paper or cardboard is perfectly recyclable, and even polypropylene has its way in recycling, but it needs to be separated for the sorting unit. And this is something that currently is usually not done by the consumer. And Flex-Pod here is on one side a monomaterial solution, it's a one material solution, and on the other side it helps also to avoid that something is getting back into the circularity processes that might not be ending up in the recycling. And so far this helps this innovation to ease up our lives.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I wanted to ask you about the cost of sustainability. It might sometimes cost more. I think sometimes recycled material is more expensive, and other reasons. How do you balance eco-friendly solutions while still providing value for your customers or be commercially viable?
I think we need to start first that, of course, any innovation and every new step into new material composition, if we are talking about mono, doesn't necessarily mean that the complexity of a structure is decreasing. So on one side we are definitely decreasing the amount of different portfolios by talking about monostructures, but the structure itself is more complex than it has been before. So it means, therefore, of course, this development, they take time, they take money, and therefore, of course, also the materials are not that comparable price-wise as the standard materials. That is one of the reasons why, for instance, these materials might have a higher cost impact. But we need to be fair enough also on the other side. That is just one side of the medal, as it always is. Currently, it is not yet the standard. So, and this is what we see as Wipak, that as soon as it will be the standard, as it will be the material that is in use on the market on a wide scale, this will also come to an end. And on the other side, we should also admit that even on European and also on the member states area, we are already talking about EPR fees or eco-modulation on these fees, and they will have an impact at least on the cost over the whole life cycle of a package, and this is what we need to take into consideration. So even if it might lead that the packaging material itself might be more costly in the beginning, at the end it might have a commercial benefit and also a monetarily benefit for our customers if we take it over the whole life cycle of a package, because when it comes at the end to any kind of bonus systems because of recyclability, there might be even a payback in these solutions. But again, currently we still need to estimate. It's not yet the standard, but when it's the standard, definitely it will ease up also these discussions.
Yes. And I also wanted to ask you a bit about Wipak's plans or sort of solutions beyond flexible packaging. Are you planning to evolve a bit in that direction? And are there any new sectors or product lines that you will expand your sustainable portfolio in the future?
So definitely what we see, and this is our common sense that we find into the regulations now upcoming and in front of us. I think in just a short time in years, Wipak might not be seen as the film producer anymore. I think, and also one of the mottos, of course, of the Fachpack this year is the digitalization process, the transformation in packaging, and therefore is not only material-wise, it is also how we manage the data that is needed to be provided over the whole supply chain, over the whole value chain. And this is where we see us also in future not only providing the film, at least providing exactly what our customer and of course all other stakeholders will need over the life cycle of the film. They need to have the documentation and they need to have access on every single data that is available on that one. And there, together with our partners, for instance, like Digimark and also our cycle, we are already providing here on the Fachpack, like digital product passports that you can easily see by just scanning the package, just scanning the material, and you get all the needed information around the packaging product that you have in your hand. I need to step back, even if you say new areas, but of course also the continuous improvement on what we're doing in terms of packaging has an influence on the sustainability range. So we just released a high amount to reinvest into the company to get state-of-the-art lines, being able to even have more efficient production on our packaging materials that we are providing towards the market. So it's not only the package itself that needs to be efficient, it's also the way how we're producing, how we're handling natural resources. And as mentioned, this is the whole view on sustainability. It's not only talking about the plastic product that leaves the company, it is the whole setup around it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to wrap up and to summarize, I wanted to ask you sort of again, what are some of the key sustainability goals that Wipak has set for itself, and how do these align with global trends and also obviously regulations and regulatory changes?
So as already mentioned, so one of the key targets is of course really providing the right materials towards the market. That means at least we set the target that the roadmap and products for 2027, for instance, is that we can have a recycling-ready alternative for all our applications that we are providing to the market. As I mentioned, we're already quite good on the road with a bit more than 80% already today that we can replace, but you can see there's still something to do within the next 2.5 years until 2027, so we are on the way doing that. Another thing is, of course, that continuously following our journey on the ESG and ESG reporting, as we have done already in the past years, and really showing transparency on how we have improved, where we have improved, and what will be the future goals that we are trying to establish. So we are now stepping into these science-based target initiatives to really show up that the things that we are saying are also valid, and we can prove them to the market, we can prove them to our customers. And I think this all together seen is that Wipak is really on the path to become one of the most sustainable companies in the flexible packaging production area.
That sounds great. Great, thank you for a really interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Insightful.